I gotta say, Jason, this is a really weird pick for you, and I think you're just memeing it.
Wait, what game is this?
This is this is
Like, are you fucking with me right now? Do you
Is
really
it
like the
Peggle?
soundtrack?
What is it?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a good soundtrack. Some might call it the best soundtrack of 2018. I certainly wouldn't, but Hunter fucking did.
I sure did.
Gentlemen, we are gathered here today to talk about the best story slash writing of the previous...
Marriage is what brings us together.
I get enough of the bullshit Elmer Fudd voice from my dad. I don't need it from you too. But yeah, we're going to talk about the best story and writing of the previous generation, a category which I personally found incredibly hard to make cuts on.
I actually found this one hard to find ones that like stood out. Like there's a lot of like good writing, but there were very few that stood out as like yes, or at least I had like 3 that popped into my head, and I had trouble thinking of ones that like matched that quality. I didn't want it to be like 3 and I guess this one's okay too.
I had to cut one that I know Sean will talk about, and that was part of why I cut it.
We'll see about that.
I call it a hunch. But that being said, we're in a slightly different order now. So Ryan, you're going to be kicking us off with what is the number 5 best story or writing that you had in video games for the last generation?
All right. I do want to lead this off with, I have not finished it, but the journey so far has been great. Kentucky Route Zero is this nice slice of Americana, like surreal Americana with really interesting dialogue and just crazy things happening. Yeah, it's really well written, and you end up going through and choosing the dialogue options, and that leads into different things that happen. And it's no matter what you choose, it's all really well written, and it's bizarre how like I guess like nostalgic it feels for a time period I did not exist in a reality I do not exist in. But it's really cool.
I particularly enjoy anytime Kentucky Route Zero comes up on this list because I truly feel that it embodies generation more than any other game.
Yeah, you haven't finished it. Neither did the developers. Woo!
Well,
Pretend I made that joke before it finally came out.
It started coming out in I think 2013 and finally finished coming out in 2020.
Like, it is the
Truly
game of a
whole
generation.
Yeah.
I would really like. I have the TV edition of that, and I really would like to get around it. I started it up and did very, very little with it, but I would really like to play some of it.
That's kind of one of those things that I think like you can kind of do an episode at a time. They're about an hour and a half to 2 hours a piece. You probably couldn't do it in one sitting unless you really wanted to, but I don't know. It's cool. You hop in, you do an episode, and you kind of digest it for a little bit, and then start up the next one.
I hope to get around to that one. That's definitely one of my misconnections. But
I think it's on Game Pass.
It might. Maybe that's how I have it. I know I have it on PC because I got it on a humble discount after you recommended it, and then I'm just like, I'm gonna wait till it's all the way out. It won't take that long. I said during Act 3.
Yeah, I think that's when it was probably about 5 years ago.
Fucking Christ.
Jesus. Well, that's my number 5.
Moving right along to a game that did not take quite so long to develop. My number 5 best story and writing is Yakuza 0.
That's the score I give that game.
Piss off, Ghost.
0.
Yakuza has a really, really interesting, and this is the whole franchise that kind of does this, but it is, when it is doing its main story, it is a stone-faced, like, realistic kind of like crime, anime drama type thing. And it's a really, really compelling, fun crime story. But then in all of its side activities, it is off-the-wall nonsense. And while that does have, like, you'd think it would give you way worse tonal whiplash, kind of bouncing between those two things, it and all of the other games in the franchise make it work really, really well. And I find that the writing of all of the side quests are incredulously compelling, incredibly endearing, super duper fun, genuinely funny. But then also the main story is a profoundly good crime story revolving around a small plot of land that is preventing the development of like a massive new building, and several different crime families trying to find the owner of that plot of land so they can acquire it. It's like a 20-hour story about land development, and it's really, really good.
I mean, isn't that
Yeah.
what all the Yakuza games end up being?
Half of them are about land development. Yes.
Which half?
All of the good ones actually are all about land development.
That's been a series I've been wanting to get into, but every time it's like, oh, I have some time to play some games. I don't actually have time to play some games, and I never quite get around to it.
It also doesn't help that they're definitely on the longer end of things. Like even if you bum rush one of those fucking games, you're looking at 15 hours, and that's
Mhm.
definitely not the ideal way to enjoy them. So it's a little bit tougher of a sell.
All
But
you need to do is you play until you get the real estate minigame and the cabaret minigame, and then you just do those, and then you stop playing the game forever.
without an ounce of irony, when I went through and started playing on Game Pass when they came out on there, I got to the cabaret and real estate minigames and then stopped playing. But yeah, the Yakuza is Yakuza 0 specifically, the game that got me turned on to the Yakuza franchise, thus making it my favorite video game franchise in existence, is my number 5. Matt, hit me with it.
So I just want to give a quick shout out to Hitman 2. It was my number 6 on the list. I just think it flows really well. All the voice acting is really good, and it's a great game.
Shout
But
out
my number
to
5,
Jason Portman.
yeah, my number 5 is Bloodborne
Okay.
for the same reasons, identical reasons. I just like it a lot more. I love Hitman, but Bloodborne is just, it's my shit, man.
Bloodborne's my number 4, so I'm just gonna piggyback onto yours really quick. When Bloodborne first came out, I really didn't like that game that much, but the one thing that I did find very attractive was like a lot of the story and lore stuff, and that really carried me through a lot of the gameplay decisions that I think are really, really mediocre. But the more I play it, the more I kind of like learned about it and invested in it, much like any of the Dark Souls games, really.
Mhm.
I think that it has the most compelling story and lore out of all of the FromSoft games. And
Yeah,
I'm a
they-
pretty
I
big
mean, they
fan of Dark
present-
Souls 1.
They present this like Lovecraft inspired gothic lore, but with like the Dark Souls flair to it, which Dark Souls itself is already super compelling, and then you just add, HP Lovecraft and cosmic horror and shit on top of it.
And
I
I
think,
think
the
they-
best part is that it starts out with just, hey, it's like Victorian London werewolf hunting shit, and then I don't want to say twist because it's not really a twist, but it kind of
What
feels-
if it was aliens?
Yeah, it's like, hey, it's cosmic horror.
It also, the DLC expansion for it is FromSoft's best DLC, bar fucking none,
It's
not even fucking
so
close.
good.
It's all of the, I think a lot of the stuff about Dark Souls 1 and the very compelling things about that are the story elements and the kind of lore and things like that, but Bloodborne blows it out of the fucking water. And it drives me nuts that they do not seem to want to revisit it, because I am so hungry for new anything that has to do with it. And I'm almost
Oh.
concerned that if they were to come back and do more with it, they'd maybe
Give
ruin
me
it. Or
another
they'd-
Hunter.
they'd like take it too much in one particular direction. It just wouldn't work out that well. But God, they nail it so perfectly. The Lovecraft elements tying into actual mechanics, like I think that the concept of insight is one of the best mechanics ever created for a video game.
Yeah, it's so fucking cool.
It hides just the right amount of information away from you. I think that when you're dealing with like Lovecraft shit, it's really easy to just make like, oh, what if squid monsters and shit, or like to not truly understand the concept of these things that your brain cannot fathom, like the whispers that if you were to even think about these things, it would drive you insane.
Is that a
And-
tentacle?
And Bloodborne captures all of that, makes it mechanically relevant, but then also makes it like story and lore wise. And then on top of that, everything with like the healing church and the background and story of its creation, it's just fantastic. Like it is the best PS4 game. They nailed it out of the gate and never made anything better than Bloodborne.
Did you guys ever see that GIF of it's a video of a frog that got put through the Google Deep Dream? Because that's the only time I've ever seen something that I'm like, oh, this is what I would imagine like a unviewable like Lovecraft kind of thing.
No,
look like.
maybe I have.
You know what?
think I've seen
But
like
there's a lot of stuff in Bloodborne that like.
Sean, Google
I think-
Winter Lantern right now.
What are the weird like I don't know, like weird like centipede, millipede things that show up?
At the Church of Bergenworth. Yeah, it's like a monster that's more or less a one-off thing of this. They surround this school where people were trying to. The entire crux of Bloodborne, I don't think this is so much a spoiler, is that everyone is attempting to ascend humanity to its next level. And then there's different factions who are attempting to figure out what's the best way to do that. Where one of them is like, if we drink the blood of old gods, that will ascend us. And then another faction is like, we need to line our brain with eyeballs, and that will allow us to like see the cosmic truth. And either
Makes
way,
sense.
it does horrible because it mutates into people that aren't human anymore, and they're typically monstrous. But it's like these are often the next like level of evolution, so to speak. It's just so fucking good. Bloodborne, fucking God, it's good.
I like
That
slime
frog thing is
scholars.
weird, Sean.
I don't buy it. Never heard of Bloodborne.
Jason, if you are gonna pull out midway through this that you have played through Bloodborne, can you just get it out of the way now? I can't. My heart cannot take it after this week.
His number one best weapon is going to be the saw cleaver or something, or the tantris or tonsil, whatever you call it.
We'll get
It's
there.
actually Ludwig's Holy Blade.
But
Yeah,
anyway,
I have
Matt,
a feeling we're going to talk about the Tanatrus later.
yeah, I've got a feeling Bloodborne's gonna
I
come up
mean,
a bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, Matt, I
but
agree.
yeah.
That's my number 4 game. So
Okay. Yeah. that
Jason,
makes sense.
go for it.
Okay, my number 5 is, I don't know if everyone here has played it, but I know at least half have. It is Wolfenstein 2.
Oh, thank heavens.
Nice.
Why? Did you cut it from your list?
It was my number 7.
I thought gameplay-wise, I think I kind of enjoyed the first one a little more, but this one definitely had a way more interesting story and just overall better writing, and I think all the cutscenes were a lot more entertaining than the first one. But I just thought it was fun and it was cool, and I mean, it had decent little twists in it.
Yeah, I think that not only does it like really, not to say the first one didn't have good character writing or anything, but I really enjoyed borderline every single character's arc throughout it. The Nazi Fraulein being like, or what's her name, the heavyset girl.
I can't remember anybody's name.
Yeah, it's like I think her in particular have one of the better arcs of just like no one trusting her, and then she eventually like just basically fucking snaps at everyone. Everything about Super Special is gold. BJ's like internal monologue throughout the game that like is so ham-fisted, but somehow loops all the way back around to being endearing is just great. Like the amount of time.
Lend me your
wings, Caroline.
Caroline.
Just a little longer.
Like
I think all the
it
flashback stuff's really good. All the stuff with his dad.
Mm-hmm.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
Wolfenstein-
fucking.
I forgot about all that.
Old
Yeah.
man Blazkowicz, like I think it truly is something special to make a character that hateable. And just right off the bat with having to shoot the dog, like profoundly good storytelling with that.
Yeah, my number 4 was Wolfenstein 2. I was kind of waffling between that one and the first one, but I think the characters and stuff and I feel like the second one has a lot of deeper themes to it, like where you kind of get the first taste of BJ like might kind of not be 100% the best cool dude, because you're like having to deal with him dying and potentially not telling his wife that he's dying, and you're kind of like, BJ, what are you doing, dude? Like, you got to tell somebody. Like, I don't know. There's just so much stuff in there where it casts a lot more people kind of in a gray light, and there's a lot more to just kind of like think about and chew on in that one.
Yeah, and the stuff with like BJ dying, it's like that's like a genuine issue of like they made BJ motherfucking Blazkowicz one of the most well thought out and empathetic characters. They took a fucking picture that is used as your health bar and turned him into an incredibly compelling character. And I think that I would definitely give Wolfenstein 2 the edge story wise compared to the first ones.
And the way So they don't forget what kind of game they are either. They're a game where you're going to Venus and shooting Nazis. And,
Oh yeah, and it's like I guess we're talking about the serious themes of it, like the ridiculous shit also
Like,
fucking whips ass.
the way that they solve BJ dying is him getting his head cut off and then re-implanted on like a super soldier slug body thing. Like, I don't know. They go over the top to solve their problems.
Yeah, that was the first level of that game I ever played.
Yeah.
That was how you guys introduced me to the Wolfenstein franchise, was playing the courtroom scene and then going through the cutscene after. And then
The
I
fucking
finally
courtroom thing where you
and then I finally played the game like 2 years later.
yeah.
The jazz scene, the fucking oh shit, I just fucking had it.
Yeah, the jazz scene was, I think it was one of my top moment or sequence from the year.
The shit with
Which
Ronald
one's the-
Reagan,
What's the jazz scene?
where
It's
he's
when-
where they're
it's
like
when-
they're having to drink each other.
Oh,
they're,
yeah.
They're drinking, and then there was that, and then there was also the dude playing saxophone while the other person's like sniping shit.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
that was it. Or was it trumpet or was it sax?
I think it's
I
like
don't
clarinet.
remember.
It's clarinet.
Okay, it was some kind of Nolans type instrument.
Yeah.
There's that part where they capture BJ and Super Spesh needs to come in and like be his lawyer, and you're just watching and you're just like, oh shit, we're gonna get out of here, and then he gets like, there's just that whole thing where it's like you barely have any control and you're just watching like stuff fall apart and you can't do anything about it.
I think
a
that
good game.
one of the things I like the least about that game is like here talking about and remembering all these really good parts of it, but then outside of today, if you ask me for the memorable Wolfenstein sequence, it's Asswipe, which
Yeah.
is one of the worst things in the whole game, if not the worst thing in the whole game.
No, I love that part. I think
I really don't like that scene. I think that scene sucks shit.
I think it's a
No,
stupid
that scene
but
is,
it's great.
I think that
I think a lot of people give it crap for
because it doesn't have Asswipe.
right. They give it crap because it has like, it's like that game is super tonal whiplash, which I think fits really well into it. But I don't know. You gotta enjoy the little things when you can. Like,
I just
wiping your
maybe
butt
would have
cheeks.
I would have maybe put the Asswipe scene in a different part of the game.
But he's dead in a different part of the game. Where do you put it?
You know, the new Wolfenstein games, along with the Yakuza franchise, are games that whenever I hear anything about it, it sounds like a made up game, like
They are buck
in
wild.
a TV show.
It's a long con, Sean. You're gonna boot it up and be like, "This doesn't have ass wipe."
Hey, you only go to space and hang out with Hitler for a little while.
Yeah, you only go to Venus in one of the games. The other one, you only go to the moon.
Like it sounds like how like a Dan Schneider show a character would describe their video game.
Sean, okay, you're a Nazi, right? You're building a base. Where are you going to put it? On Venus, obviously.
I don't like this supposition.
Okay. Well,
You're
Sean,
getting
what
a
is
little
it?
too close to doxing him, is what he's saying.
Sean, I mean, he's got the cop mustache.
I know.
Hey.
Sean, what game is real that you think is an actual game that is your number 5 best story you're writing?
Dan Schneider presents Sean's top 5 story.
So I kept telling myself I wasn't going to put this one on because
game?
it doesn't fully fit. But getting over it with Bennett Foddy.
No, that works.
For the
Yeah.
same reasons that I put him as best character last time. It is very like for a lot of the time I'm rolling my eyes. I'm thinking this is so like surface level, but I just keep re-listening to his monologue. It's very genuine. It's very heartfelt, and it also just like is a little inspirational in ways that I'm like,
Fartfelt.
no.
One of the things that I have thought about, like, if I could like go back to high school and actor's studio, I would do that as my monologue. Like, I really like
it's a
his
long monologue.
Bitch,
Long.
I
They
did
have
never
to let him finish.
I can do it.
Yeah, you got to play all of Getting Over It to hear it.
Facts.
And it's great because it really like has this great like slide from like taunting you to like waxing about like why to make a video game to him just being like, hey, I'm glad you did this. And it's, I don't know, it feels so genuine that I can't, that normally it would feel embarrassing if it was at all, you know.
It's very earnest in a way
Yeah,
that
exactly.
like you can, it almost, it like, I'm
Ernest
sure
scared
it isn't.
stupid or goes to jail, you think?
Can I kick him? Can I
No,
remove
Goes
him?
Ernest
goes to
getting over
camp.
It's like I'm sure that it was rehearsed and written out ahead of time, but it feels very off the cuff in a way that is very good and I like a whole lot. Also, no other game in this generation talks that much about sexy hiking.
Did
Which-
you check?
Which
Sorry, I think I just lost. Sorry, I lost everyone there, and I Hunter roboted on me. Which, yeah, I don't care much for sexy hiking, but I'm glad it inspired this.
Hunter, I need you to sexily hike your way over into this chat and tell me your 5th best story or writing.
Well, I don't
You
have a
just won't let it
webcam,
go.
so unlucky for you.
That's why, because your hiking's just too sexy.
We're just gonna have to close our eyes and imagine him sexy hiking.
Gotta censor me because YouTube will take it down otherwise.
Demonetized.
None of my things are really on here for story per se. It's more of like character writing and stuff. But I put Valhalla as number 5. That
Oh yeah, the bartender game.
yeah, that bartender VN thing. Mostly because I really like cyberpunk settings, and I really like when
Have I
they're.
got the game for you?
It's never coming out. I really like.
Nevada will give results before Cyberpunk's out.
It'll come out in the year that's in the title.
I like
Got
when
'em.
there's bigger stuff going on around the characters, but like the main character doesn't really care. Like there's shit happening in the background, but you're like, I'm a bartender. I need to make rent. I don't care. Like there are riots at one point and the whole police force, like oppressive police force, gets taken down. It's realistic. And
So you can just say police force.
and like one of the
Got 'em.
channels on the background TV changes from supporting that to just like a game show kind of thing. It's just, if you give people different drinks, they'll say different things, and you can up the alcohol rating on each drink to make them drunk. And it's just a lot of neat characters in it.
I've really
I-
wanted to
I
play
played a
Valhalla.
single
It looks so
shift.
cool.
Yeah, I played a single shift in that game and I really enjoyed it.
I haven't even heard of it. I should check it out.
Yeah, I think I thought it was a completely different game.
It is 100% a VN.
Yeah,
so-
yeah, it's a VN with like minor bartending elements, but
Yeah, there's a little bit of like, if you remember someone's drink or you make them something that they like, you'll get some like different dialogue, but that's
Yeah.
about it.
There's like 6 different endings too, but I mean,
Mhm.
it's pretty repetitive to get through them. There is a shmup mini game though you can get.
hell yeah.
Okay, I'm about to say the dumbest thing I possibly could, but for whatever reason,
My name's Sean.
no, I got Valhalla confused with Hellblade. I have no idea how.
Very different game.
Yeah.
Hellblade.
Yeah, one has a cyberpunk setting and the other has kind of like a Nordic setting, but it's the same gameplay more or less.
Yeah, you're just mixing drinks. Just one of them you serve them to crows, the other one you serve them to robots.
Yeah.
Sorry to what's the word? Go off the rails. What's the word?
So
off the
Ryan,
rails.
your number 4 was Wolfenstein.
Yeah, Wolf and Pupper too.
My number 4 was Bloodborne. So Matt, I think that we're going to come right back around to you for your number 4.
All right, my number
Expediting
4 is,
And then his
Can't
internet
believe
cuts
Matt
out.
died.
Matt, repeat.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, my number 4 is Fury.
Okay.
Hmm.
Speaking of expediting, let's talk about the game in which you walk the slowest ever in history.
You're in a
So
tank
slow.
and they roll so slowly.
But there's an
Good one,
auto
Sean.
walk
I
button.
almost bought a copy of Fury at Best Buy, but I bought 1917 instead.
Fury's
Good
really
choice.
good.
Yeah. But yeah, the story stuff in
But yeah,
Fury is
I-
really, really good.
I like that it's super
I don't
So
know, we're
for
losing him.
cryptic all
Matt,
the way
stop
through.
watching
at,
Netflix
at
while
no
we-
point. I'm not not doing anything. I have my list open and I have Zoom open.
We'll
That's
close
it.
Zoom. It's eating up too much bandwidth.
All right, see you guys later.
But yeah.
I just like how cryptic it is all the way through, and then even after I finished playing it the first time, I felt like I still didn't know what the fuck was going on, and I really enjoyed that.
I also like a lot of the boss. Like, there's the one like there. So it's like you breaking out of the prison. Like, largely the like jailers kind of seem like dickwads, but then like the couple of them that are more like, I guess, stoic, peaceful, like the knight guy, the green knight guy, who has like the more
Yeah.
stronger kind of sense of justice. But then also the last one that you kind of just mop the floor with. Like, you're clearly like killing an inexperienced person. I think the Fury does its stuff very, very effectively.
Yeah,
I just
think
like
it's
that
great.
structure that that like Enter the Dragon structure or whatever, where it's like you're just fighting through harder and harder things as you go through stuff. It's just a story structure I like.
Well, before we lose Matt, Jason, what
Fuck.
is your number 4?
Okay, the more we talked about it, and I remember parts of Wolf 2, I probably would have moved it up, but it is what it is. And my number 4, it doesn't super fit the list. It's more of just like I enjoyed the entire length of it, and it was entertaining. But mine's Super Mario Odyssey. Not really a series known for doing anything new with characters or writing a plot, but at the same time, it felt like, I don't know, you cover so much more ground in that one compared to a lot of other Mario games, so I feel like it somewhat has a story that you're following.
But the story of Mario Odyssey rules because of 2 particular things. Number 1, Bowser is a gentleman and just wants to have a really good wedding, and he's very stressed about it and would really appreciate if Mario would stop trying to mess with it. I can confirm, and even with my small scale wedding, it's a very stressful thing. So I can relate to Bowser on that. Number
He's
2,
an everyman in that way.
it confirms that Bowser is in fact a member of the Christian faith, having a wedding in a church the way he is. So I think it does leaps and bounds for the story and writing and the lore.
The signs were all there ever since Sunshine.
Yeah. But yeah, I can actually back you up on that. I think it does well. Like, it's clearly not the focus of it. The story stuff it has works pretty well. I also like the ending of Peach just saying "fuck off,"
Mm-hmm.
and then
Yeah.
Mario
It's her
and
turn
Bowser
to
have to fuck
travel.
each other.
Yeah, it felt weird putting a Mario game on story and writing because they generally don't have a story.
I just feel like there's so many more layers in this one to when he says like "Let's it go." Like, what is he actually saying this time?
What did he mean by saying "Mamma Mia"?
On
Who's
Ouija.
Mama? Why is she his? What is happening?
Somebody had to write that Mario has nipples in this game.
That's
Design
true. Somebody had to code that
Somebody
in.
had to 3D model them.
That
What
was
a
actually
lucky
a
bastard.
script correction in this one, and the writer was not gonna cave on it at all.
Yeah, someone had to write the story of as soon as I could take Mario's shirt off, he never had a shirt for the rest of the time I played it.
Mario looks somewhat like your WWE custom character in my head canon. So Sean, on the topic of having nipples, what's your
That's me.
number 4?
So this game actually, I want to ask Ryan, if you have this on your list, I feel like you can do it more justice. Oxenfree.
It's not on my list, but it was.
Then I will do
it
it
was
a
in
little
the running.
I can summarize the story.
God damn it.
Oh
Oh
boy.
boy.
Don't let Jason take over.
You just walk and don't do fucking anything, and it's not a video game.
Okay, Hunter, your turn. What's your number 4?
But I think before I step on your toes too much,
Oh, feel free.
Oxenfree does a really cool thing with the dialogue where it flows a lot more naturally because you could choose when to hop in and say your dialogue options. You don't just like wait for the animation to end or the stuff to stop. You can like literally interrupt people, do stuff like that. But then the story itself is just a really cool ghost story thing with a bunch of different endings, including like a decently secretive ending that's kind of shoved in there. That's just, when I found out about it afterwards, like, what the you can do that?
Same. And I feel like it's a game that like it takes a lot of things that have like been done before and adds like a little innovation to a lot of them. In
Mhm.
pretty much the 2 things you said were going to be my examples. But yeah, it's good. But it's
Just-
not a game according to Jason, so it's disqualified.
Yeah. Well, he's not going to like my next one then. But
Oh boy.
Wii
But I
menu.
always try Oxenfree, so I know I don't like it.
Yeah, I highly recommend Oxenfree if you like that kind of, I don't know. It's got like a Stranger Things vibe. It's got that Goosebumps vibe. But it does a lot of things to, I guess, innovate in this genre. Kind of like the little bit I played of like Night in the Woods. It kind of feels like that a little bit.
Similar vibe.
Yeah, it just has a lot of cool things in it that I think puts it above a lot of games of that ilk.
And as we mentioned last time, great music.
Oh,
Great
so
music.
good.
The developer of that game followed up with another kind of game like that, where you go to hell and have to out-party the devil. And I
It's called
booted it
Doom
up.
Eternal.
And I booted it up because that concept sounds really, really cool for a game. And the first series of dialogue exchanges are so motherfucking cringy, I had to uninstall it.
Wait, what's the game called?
After Party.
I've not even heard of that.
It's on Game Pass,
On
I
Game
think.
Pass.
I still need to play it because how much I liked Oxenfree. But I feel like having older people try to write like teenagers and stuff is such a, like, it's a fine line you need to walk. And I saw it with like Life is Strange and stuff like that, where it's like, if you get it wrong, it's fucking obvious that you've never talked to a teenager before. And it's so hard to play through.
That's lit, fam.
I think Night in the Woods nails that incredibly well.
Go fuck yourselfy. Oh, my blog.
Oh my
You know,
god,
guys,
I
how
forgot
we
they said
talk.
that!
Wait,
Oh,
is
I
that
forgot they said
seriously?
that
is
is in Life is Strange.
Oh my god!
It doesn't help with Life is
Oh,
Strange
my
that
blog.
they're also French.
So maybe they're just like that.
Oh,
Like,
oh
don't-
fuck your
don't they-
selfie.
No, the people in the game are not French. They are from
No,
like
the writers
Portland,
are
but the writers
French.
are French Canadian.
Yeah.
Oof.
Like, don't they say
Oof.
discotheque at some point in that game?
I don't think so. I don't think
Okay.
that happens.
Yes,
But
let us go to our young people discotheque.
yeah. Why are they Italian?
that was French. It was great, right?
Are we talking about Mario?
Yeah.
Hunter, on the topic of Italian, I need you to tell me your number 4, which I'm sure is another thing that was involved with the Axis power.
I mean, maybe. I'd say it's probably the opposite. Since
It's Mario.
like, it's Control, which takes place in America, which is the
Damn it.
Allied.
I thought
That's
for
my
sure it'd be
number
Weeb
3.
shit. I thought Weeb shit was a pretty good bet.
Yeah.
But again, not really because the story is just kind of but more just the world building, the setting.
Hard
just-
disagree.
I think the story's passable, but it's the world building and details that definitely I think that again, Control I think was my number 9 on this list that I had to cut,
Mhm.
but it's not because of the like core plot. It's the just everything surrounding. It's the details, the sticky notes, the logs, the reports. Everything.
Plus, just shit like how Jesse refers to.
Wait, real quick. Sorry, I'm 3 hours in. I'm gonna mute.
I'm not gonna
We're not gonna hit story points.
Yeah,
Okay, cool,
No.
cool.
I was gonna say how like right near the start where you first fight the enemies and Jesse's like, "Ugh, what's that hiss?" And then every official document from that point on just refers to them as the hiss,
Mhm.
just because she made an offhanded comment.
She's the director. You do what she says.
Exactly.
She was chosen by a gun.
And then right
That's
at
the
the
dream.
end, you know, when everybody yeah, I think I agree. Like, I feel like the A plot is kind of whatever, but there's so much creativity packed into world building or just like little incidents that you'll come across or scenarios that are set up where a lot of it is like, I feel like I don't know what to expect while I'm playing through it. And then when I come across something, it's like, how did somebody even think of that? Like, it's so weird. It's so cool. It's very like X-Files-y, but like different. I don't
Like,
know. It's a cool game.
After playing Control, I got on the SCP wiki to just like try to chase that high, but
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever read like so vigorously read journals and logs, and like I just wanted to know every little detail. I want to know about every altered item. I want to know about every altered world event. I just want to know everything about all the little stuff in Control.
Well, I think the best part is when Jesse looks at someone's like, "Do you think the hiss can talk? Do you think they can dance?" And then it's a DreamWorks style Marmaduke dance sequence.
I want to meet Dr.
And then the
Darling.
hiss looks at the camera and raises one eyebrow and does like the side smile. It's a DreamWorks face.
You know, I can't know that if that's true or not. I have no choice but to believe.
Hunter, before we spoil any more control for Sean, I think we should move on. Ryan, what's your number 3?
So this one kind of went back and forth a lot with my number 2. In fact, like as we were talking, I reshifted around numbers like 2 or 3 times. But this one specifically had me thinking a lot about it after I played it, and it's the beginner's guide. I think the basic idea of the game is really cool. The way everything is handled is really cool. The way like information and twists and all that stuff are dealt out is so novel and interesting. And then the whole story itself is really cool. And there's a lot of stuff in there of like the person who plays its role within this whole extra story. Like you're kind of a part of it in some capacity. But it's
Beginner Guide's pretty good.
no beginner's guide rules. Fuck you.
Yeah, Beginner Guide. Yeah, okay, it rules. It's pretty good.
But which one's better, that or Stanley Parable?
Oh, Beginner's Guide easily, not even fucking close. That is not even a remote comparison.
I think
Like Stanley Parable is interesting from like it's interesting, but like it ain't Beginner's
Stanley
Guide.
Parable is what you like introduce people to, but like beginner's guide is like when you kind of really get in the weeds with like video game stuff or
That's ironic.
art and stuff like that. Like you get into it and you're just like, holy shit. Like, I don't know. There's a lot there. There's a lot to unpack. And different people I've told to play it have come back to me after they played it. There's like, I don't know how I feel after playing it. Like it does a really good job of like, you finish the game and you kind of feel icky, which I don't know if I've ever like beaten a game and been like, oh, I don't know. I liked that, but I think I hate myself now that I played it.
Honey Pop.
Well, on the topic of finishing a game and then feeling sticky, my number 3 is Nier Automata, and I'm not sure if there's really a whole lot else to be said at this point.
There's
about
a whole Nier podcast.
Exactly. There's a
Exactly.
podcast. I don't think there's anything
There's
else.
the last episode of this.
It's like
I mean,
I don't really feel the need to harp on it, but even though I think that the writing and things like that are some of that game's like strongest things, I only have it at number 3 despite it being my favorite game because I think that Nier as a whole package is much greater than any of its individual components. So I think it's got really good writing and stuff, but it's not my number 1. But with that, I'm going to pass it on to Matt.
well, my number 3 is Control.
Troll,
So,
good fucking game.
It's
Yeah.
a game.
Yep.
Jason, what's your number 3?
My number 3 is not a game we've said already, so we can actually talk for more than 3 seconds.
All I heard is it's not a game.
Moving on.
Oxenfree.
My number 3 is Inside, because that game's
Yeah.
wild.
I'm not gonna lie. You said that, and then I had to think for a moment which game that was.
Inside which
What's
game,
it
Jason?
inside?
Yeah, Inside's cool.
I just think I didn't expect it to go where it went at all.
Yeah, I mean,
I
who'd have
think that's
thought you
another
would
one
think
of-
but
Yeah.
Who'd have thought you had to go inside?
That's another one of those games that like you need to unpack based on stuff that like you see or you encounter. They don't really spell anything out, and then kind of once you finish the game, you're just like, what the fuck did I just do? And then you sit around and you think about it for a while, maybe play it again and be like, oh, you're pulling a thing out of a pig's butt. I know what that means.
I can think of very few
Who
that
doesn't?
to do a podcast about with your friends.
Damn, and there's another one for my missed connections. There we go.
podcast with the boys.
Just go play it. It's only like a few hours long.
Yeah, it's really
Yeah,
short.
it's like 2 hours.
I'm just adding anything that sounds cool that you guys have mentioned has been my missed connections.
Sean
next
has
on
never
the list.
played a video game. This is gonna be an impossible to finish list.
Sean, check out Microsoft Solitaire. You'll love it.
Oh, dude, seriously though.
No,
This
check
global
out
game
Space Cadet 3D
Minesweeper?
Pinball.
Oh man, I would play a good 5 minutes and go, wow, of Space Cadet 3D Pinball now. That would feel
Wow.
great. I was gonna say I would play hours of that if presented now, but that's not true.
Sean, what is your
I'd play
number
hours.
3 game that is presumably has a more rich and compelling story than Space Cadet 3D Pinball?
Oh,
It's
it's my
Space
turn.
Cadet 3D Pinball.
It's Space
Oh,
uh,
Space Cadet
my-
4D Pinball.
It's got
My number-
television.
3, and I'm sure it's one that I've talked about before, and I'm sure we'll get talked about again. Night in the Woods.
Fuck, I'm so glad you did, because I was my number 6 cut, and I really didn't want to fucking cut it.
Was that the one you
I
were
realized
banking
that's what you
on?
meant. Yeah.
Yeah. It's Night in the Woods. It's another one I considered a lot like Nier Automata, where it's like right place, right time when I first played it.
Mhm.
And while I think that the stuff surrounding Alec Holoka is super duper shitty and bad, I think that game can still be talked about and remove art from artist.
I don't even know what happened.
It's not good.
It's rough.
Ooh.
Yeah,
I'll have to
it's
look
not.
into it.
It's just a categorical bummer for everything involved.
But Scott Benson is all around a
yeah,
cool dude.
Scott Benson's
so.
great.
And,
Yeah,
Bethany, I don't remember his wife's last name.
Night in the Woods. It's just that really good. I don't like fall and like Halloween stuff. Like I know you guys are all Over the Garden Wall fans, and it's not something I'm ever really to get. It's just not my kind of scene.
I know
But
what Jason's
the
thinking.
melancholy Harfest vibes of Night in the Woods, I replay it every year around your guys' kind of like Over the Garden Wall times. Like it's my Over the Garden Wall, I guess.
It's
got melancholy vibes from watching a squirrel movie.
Hey, there's a turtle in it too.
It really is a game that like when I first started playing it, I got frustrated because I was like, oh, I want to like move it forward. But like once I got to the point where I was like, I just want to live in this. It's a really great game to just like live in, because there's every little nook and cranny has something. There's like characters that like have across the like couple weeks that this game takes place across, because it's you wake up in your bed each morning, you go to bed at night, and each day you can see different people in town just doing everything in this little Richard scary ass town. And I put Jeremy as my number one character, and he's really the prime example of just like a real feeling character that's fully fleshed out, when really there's no point in this character having more than like 2 lines, but this character has a whole arc.
Yeah, and like every single character like it has this lived in feeling that I really like, where it's every character has their whole lives and their backstories and the way they all relate to each other, the way they all react to each other. Like I think that Selmers is one of the most compelling kind of cases for this, where it's like through Selmers you reveal kind of more information about this like kind of shitty town doctor who like just wants everyone to write in these journals. But then Selmers like arc and everything, the way it ties into Maze, I think the Night in the Woods is a profoundly good, like a good like tale of anxiety and dealing with like the May's school stuff. I find May to be incredibly relatable. I really just profound, like I guess the one kind of vibe that I don't get is I don't have that like small town feeling or that need to like get out of a small town. Like I don't have the wanderlust associated kind of with living in a situation like that.
I do think that part of it ties in well with the sort of being a small scared person in a big scary world kind of vibe, even though like I didn't live in a small town or anything.
But I mean, but still, like you've left your hometown to go off and do other things. Like I think that could be something that resonates much.
Don't dox me, Dash. People can't know where I am. But yeah,
I'm from a smallish town, and I've gone back to visit, and it is kind of similar, like where you go back to something a little different, and you start to realize like other people's lives have gone on without you, and I don't know, it's cool. I played like I think the first 2 nights of that game.
I would wholly recommend it to everyone, but with the caveat of being patient with it. Because I tried to
maybe the caveat for Jason that it's not a video game.
Oh yeah, Jason, I don't think you'll like it.
It has a rhythm game section in it. It's got gameplay.
It's true. It's got a knife fight.
Yeah, it's got a knife fight. It's got
platforming.
You can go back behind the Snack Falcon and break light tubes with your friend Greg. Greg rules. I think the only thing I really don't like about and I kind of run into this every time I play it. I think that the overall like the plot. Just in case because there's people who haven't played it, like the plot I think kind of sucks.
You and I diverge in that because I think the spooky stuff is genuinely spooky.
I think again that falls into me not liking spooky shit. Like I like the mundane, character-driven anxiety tale more than the spooky shit.
You hear Dash likes mundane, boring stuff.
Yeah, you're goddamn right.
Wouldn't it be great if you were up next?
But with that, yeah, Night in the Woods is really good. I highly recommend it. It's fantastic. But Hunter, what you got for us?
So wait, it's called Night in the Woods, but you go to
Night.
sleep in your bed all the time?
You
Well-
do at one point go to sleep in the woods.
Oh, okay.
You spend many nights in the woods
Okay.
Well,
I
then
was
why
gonna
is it
say
only
it's
called
just-
Night in the Woods?
Yeah.
because only one of them matters.
Well, I put Undertale for 3. Because again, the main story's,
It's anime shit, but it's
Yeah,
good
it's-
anime.
it's
Hey,
anime shit.
those are anime tropes for a reason.
but it's more for like, all the characters are great and they
Yeah.
interact really wonderfully, and
I put Undertale as my number 2.
you get
since we're
friend
coming
zoned
up to
by
that.
a skeleton.
It has
Yeah.
burger pants in it. Like it has to be
Yeah, what more
awarded
do you
something for
want?
having burger pants.
It's like bursting to the seams with charm.
Plus, just
Yeah.
like there are little things that will like change between playthroughs. Like when you on the first playthrough, if you use the instant noodles, it like does a really long thing of how you heat up water and wait for it to boil and put it in the noodles and then eat it. But then after, if you do a genocide run, you just eat them raw, and then any time after that, you just eat them raw, and it just heals you fully.
Yeah, like I think the stuff between the like the meta narrative kind of like genocide and pacifism, like that stuff and the way that affects the game is super duper cool. I really need to play that. What's that PS1 RPG? That it just got ported to Switch. I need to fucking play that.
Oh,
Its
is it
name
called like Cloud or something like
Love,
that?
Love. Ah, shit.
I can't
I don't.
remember.
But yeah, it's like a one-word name. But I need to play that because like Toby Fox cites that as like his number 2 inspiration behind Earthbound,
Mhm.
and I just want to check that out.
Yeah,
Earthbound inspired
Undertale.
Now,
What?
Earthbound inspired? I wouldn't be able to tell.
No. I think for me with Undertale and why it's up at number 2 is just everything about it. Like the main plot's fine, although it does kind of get into some really interesting like meta narrative stuff. That's really cool, but it's like all the characters are super well written. Like I like every character, good characters, the evil characters, all that stuff. Love all of them. The like item descriptions and action descriptions, just random enemies that you come across have cool things. There's like the random dialogue. Like everything about it is so charming and interesting and funny that I don't know, it really sticks with me.
I distinctly
More
remember
so
it.
than the story.
I distinctly remember a time that there was a GameStop customer who I was actually on pretty good terms with. Like they were one of our kind of better regulars. I was.
Oh, he's gonna say it. Dash's
was
gonna say it. I'm
sorting-
gonna get mad again.
I was sorting stuff. I remember exactly where I was. I was like crouched down on the floor, putting stuff up, getting ready for holiday. And he asked me what my game of the year was. And I said, oh, it's Undertale easily. And he just says to me, oh, that meme game. And I almost just like turned and looked at him and said, like, listen here, you fucker. Like,
The Pope likes Undertale.
but this was also like at the time a high schooler, so everything about me, like certainly talking about this, would have been very weird. But when he said that, it's just like, you son of a bitch! Like, what a reductive ass thing to say. Yeah, Undertale good.
well, also, real quick, while we're still on Undertale, did you ever find Glide?
Oh, is that the thing you have to like do the piano for?
No, this is you know that room like right near the start where in the snowy place where it's just like a door and
Yeah, yeah.
mushrooms?
That
You just have to go in there and wait for 2 minutes, and then he shows up and fights you, and he doesn't show. He was like a Kickstarter enemy. Like,
oh yeah, that guy, the fucking Dumbo looking motherfucker.
Oh.
because just like I didn't even fucking know about this thing until like 2 months ago.
Oh
I know
really?
there's been a lot of like weird shit that shows up in that game.
I mean, they're
I
so
should-
sorry, but I mean that's just a weird fetish furry character.
I should play Deltarune.
Yeah, I
Pretty
should
good.
probably
From
get
what
around to that at
from
some
what I've
point.
played, it's
I've-
pretty good.
I've heard incredibly positive things about it.
Don't
But
worry.
it's not a
Toby
meme, so
Fox.
I'm not gonna play
Yeah,
it.
it's not a meme game, so fuck that.
Yeah.
So Ryan, that was your number 2. Yeah, the
Yep.
meme game.
The Underside Tale.
Okay, then moving on to my number 2. In the year of our Lord 2016, a game released where you play as an ancient warrior in a coffin from hell who goes around killing a lot of demons. And I gave that game my number 2 game of the year.
Animal Crossing City Folk.
I gave it my number 2 game of the year in 2016 because the game better than it was better than all of Doom 2016 purely on its narrative chops, and it's the King's Quest reboot.
Oh, I thought we were going to talk
Oh.
about Doom.
Nah, fuck off.
So did
King's
I.
Quest, baby.
Yeah.
No,
What
no,
a
no,
shitty
no, no,
bait
no,
and
no, no, no.
switch.
King's Quest reboot. It's number 1. Everything
No, I
about
thought it was number 2.
everything about saying like,
Yeah.
hey, we're gonna reboot King's Quest in 2016, and it's done by Activision. And we're
I
not
thought
getting
it was
any of
done
the.
by the hatted gentleman or the bearded gentleman or whatever.
It was done by Sierra, but there it's owned by Activision. And they specifically said like, oh yeah, the original creators aren't going to be involved with it. Just like everything that is going to be like really shitty about a reboot, and they not only nail it right out of the gate, but every single episode is super duper fucking good. Some of the best. It is the best of those Telltale style games ever. Like
So
full
good.
stop, not even close. I adore King's Quest. It doesn't help that it does a lot of things with its narrative, especially towards the end, that like hit. It's like those things that like I'm a sucker for when things do shit like it, and that game makes me weep like a bitch. Like holy shit, it hits all of the right points that I'm looking for in a narrative. And it's just profoundly good, and I will never get anyone else to play it. But
I played episode 1.
I didn't
you
know it
should
existed,
finish
but
it.
I'm kind
you
of
should
excited
really
to hear
fucking
it.
finish it.
I know. I think I got stuck somewhere in episode 2.
It's on Game Pass. It's on
I'm a
Game
fucking
Pass.
idiot.
When are we gonna get a Telltale style Peasant's Quest reboot?
Bro, I would love that. But yeah, King's Quest, I stand firmly by that it is a better game than Doom 2016 because of its narrative chops. And
Why don't you just watch a movie?
hey,
Got him.
hey, if it'll get people to listen to the story, I do not give a shit. I guess one reason to it I don't want to say, because it's like within the context of like, oh, your choices in a narrative game matter. Like obviously it all kind of, folds back in on one point, but you pick your wife midway through like the 3rd game.
My wife.
My wife. And
It's topical again, you guys.
wah wah wee wah. But yeah, it's fucking fantastic, and I will sing the praises of it eternally. And
So what
I'm
you're
honestly
saying
surprised
is nice.
is nice. It is nice. I'm honestly surprised it's not my number 1, but we'll get to that in a bit. So Matt, I'm gonna pass it off to you.
Yeah. Well, so I'm not going to talk about this a whole lot because my internet is shitting the bed regularly. But
I've
my
been
number
there.
2 is Axiom Verge.
Black Axiom Turge.
So we'll
You're
call
right,
it
Hunter.
that.
You got me. Boom. Yeah,
Ah.
it's a great fucking game.
Cool game.
I love it.
I think it has a really cool story. I don't know. It's kind of fish out of water, but not quite. Some guy dropped from one reality into another, and then watching him try to deal with it somehow, but still being cool as a cucumber in the face of, I don't know what you would call it.
A
HR.
very hostile HR geeker, horrible hell world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's got sick ass sideburns and a duster.
6 sideburns. Yeah. Truly, I mean, few games give you a duster, and I think that's why we need to give PUBG game like best story and writing, because you can get a multiple colors of duster in it, which is one of the best things you can do with your writing.
Well,
That's
keep
all it
that
takes.
keep that duster thing in the back of your mind. But the
Oh boy.
I like the twist, I guess, in Axiom Verge. Just what stuff kind of turns out to be, what all this stuff is, why this is some weird hellscape thing it all comes full circle. It's crazy.
Ryan, you saying "Remember That Duster" reminded me what my number 5 best tool was, and I thank you for that.
It's dust.
I wonder. I'm gonna put a pin in that. Okay, Jason, what's your number 2 before Matt's internet shits the bed?
My number 2 is Nier Automata.
Yeah,
So
that's a good choice.
Don't need to talk about it.
Never heard of it.
Jesus.
Sean, what's your number 2?
My number 2. Oh shoot, where'd it go? My number 2, another game that I love to talk about is Return to the Obra Dinn. I love this game so much, and the reason I put it on story/writing is because it does so much with so little. Like the fact that I know the basic arc of the life of 60 people, even though some of them blend together, but the fact that you piece together just like what these people do in a time of like imminent death is it's amazing.
The point where the plot line of Obra Dinn like clicks into place, where you figure like the first moment where you start to figure out what went wrong. I think that Obra Dinn is super rad for a number of reasons, but I do completely agree that its story and the way they tell it in the nonlinear fashion, having to piece everything together the way it is, like it gives you that aha moment. And I guess it's also about aha moment because I mean it's not like you're figuring it out, but the moment when you realize exactly when and how shit goes wrong is such a good feeling of like, and then
it's
it
a game
completely
full of like
recontextualizes everything.
it's never something that it's a game where you're never like, oh, suddenly it all makes sense. It's a game where you're slowly putting a million little pieces together across a big puzzle.
And then
And
going
it's a
back
That's
shame
to
that
only
it-
10 pieces you just put together.
back to older scenes, like after going back to older scenes and future scenes, like with the different like knowledge and context of the different things that happen. Like it's I know a lot of like things play around with like, oh, we're gonna show like ending parts before, but the way that the non-linear focus of it works so shockingly well.
Oh yeah.
Um,
And like integrates super well with the gameplay because you see who you need to see and you're obscured from who you need to not see. It's great.
I wish I could erase that game from my memory and play it all over again.
Same. The best I could do now is go through the scenes in linear order.
I still need to keep playing it. I did the first scene.
I recommend everyone to put more time than you think you're willing to into it.
It-
When you
yes,
get frustrated, put it down and come back to it a day
if you get
later.
frustrated, it's a really easy game to brute force and cheese. So
Don't do that.
don't do that. Do not do that. Don't do what Dash did.
But that's kind of how I gauge a good puzzle game, is if I get frustrated and then while I'm kind of out somewhere doing something, go, wait a minute.
That card.
And then that's a good puzzle game, yeah.
Like it's
I mean,
one of the-
yeah, I mean, BioShock Infinite really threw me for a loop right there at the beginning.
Yeah.
And then I remember that
It's
card.
a casual filter.
Yeah.
I mean, I
Hunter-
just didn't get it. Like,
Hunter,
when
I need you to filter out the casuals and give me what will assuredly be a deep cut with your number 2.
Okay, it's Red Dead 2.
Man, fucking swing and a miss twice. 0 for 2 on setting Hunter up.
Come on, Dash, you're a bad pitcher.
The Red Dead 2 story is real good.
You're a
Dash,
bell-
how are you gonna hold all this Kool-Aid?
Shut the fuck up, Sean.
Someone else is going to have to end the meeting.
Man,
But
that's good.
That's
That's gonna be my best moment.
More for like the smaller character moments between like Arthur and everybody in camp, at least before shit starts going south. Like anytime you pull off a job and everyone's celebrating and drinking and singing around the campfire, like the drunk thing with Lenny and
Lenny!
That part is so good.
Where
Just
he kills
Lenny.
and just like that, like there's one little side mission thing with like two brothers arguing over the same woman, and they're both like, I need you to shoot this bottle off my head while I'm jumping up and down. It's like, oh yeah, well I need you to shoot the bottle off my head while I'm jumping up and down and cartwheeling, and then it just ends with you pushing them both in a barrel over a waterfall, and then they both crawl out and like, why are we fighting over this bitch?
Rockstar is very good at writing things, especially when it comes to the Red Dead franchise. I don't think that's that controversial to take.
No, I completely agree with that take.
I'm pissed.
In fact, I will take that take and say Red Dead Redemption 2 is my number 1.
Oh,
How's that for a
Oh,
segue?
man, yeah, he raises the stakes.
So Red Dead 2, I didn't want to jump in before we got to number 1s. I feel those are special occasions, so I'm going to hop in with my
I
opinion.
know the
on it
exact
now.
way you feel.
Red Dead 2 was the first game that I played that it was like just playing through it takes like 65 hours. But I feel like besides maybe chapter 3, most of that is justified. Like I actually feel like time passed.
No,
and
Justified's
stuff-
the other cowboy property.
Boom.
I feel like most of
Okay,
that
I
is
really feel
True
like those
Grit.
hours were lonesome.
It was really
doved.
Deadwood.
Um, all the characters have their own unique thing. I never got any characters confused. They were all had their own motivations. And when it was getting to points where later on in the plot, stuff was kind of falling apart, there was a lot of like, well, who's this person going to go with? What's going to happen? What's going on with them? There's a lot of, it has a real poetic nature to it with the way that Arthur ends up passing. It's got a really good epilogue that I think is really cool, setting you up for Red Dead 1. I feel like the length of that game is justified, and it makes me feel like I've kind of played through like the whole series of like a TV show almost. Whereas you go from the beginning, you
Or
got
you just watch a movie.
because in this one I can wander around and do nothing for 50 of those 65 hours.
Just pause the TV and like pace back and forth in your house.
Yeah.
Yeah, dumbass.
I think that the art of
What,
the
am I trying to
sequel-
hatch Pokemon or something? Got it.
Boom.
Got him. Ugh.
I think that the art of the sequel is already a very difficult thing to do, but I think the art of the prequel is even harder. And I think
Mhm.
that like the way that it runs with the stuff that's set up in the first Red Dead, and then capitalize on all of it, makes it work within the context of the first game without like invalidating anything about the first game. It's super fantastic. Like I didn't think I needed Bill Williamson backstory, and then as it turns out, I very much needed Bill Williamson backstory.
Yeah.
Yeah, Red Dead 2 is maybe the best written game that I fucking hate.
I
It's,
don't
I
know,
love
it's
that
too
game.
long. Too
It's-
long.
it's
you know, I
like,
couldn't play it, just quit.
It's like The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, where you're like, oh, okay, that was a good movie, and then you still have like 2.5 hours left, and you're like, why is it so long?
Well,
like
mo-
Life.
moving on to a game that is not super long, as much as I do really like the narrative of King's Quest, and as much as that brought me to absolute tears and moved me emotionally, it did
This
not.
is the one that brought him to ejaculating.
Brought him to
King's,
beers.
King's
dude.
Quest, with everything that it did not fuck me up. And the only game I can think of this past generation whose story fucked me up is The
XCOM.
Beginner's Guide.
Oh shit. Oh shit.
Okay.
The Beginner's Guide.
Dash was sitting here fucking staring at me, and I'm like, just like, oh yeah, it's sure, I guess.
Because number one's on your list means something special, and
Yeah,
I
you're
wanted to
right.
wait to talk about
Disagree.
it. The Beginner's Guide as a game about a game developer, about what is art, what are people's intentions with the art that they make. As I'm going through a game development program and making games, fucked me right up something fierce by the end of it, and it stuck with me for days. To the point, like, it really, really fucked me up in
Oh,
a
yeah.
lot of ways.
Me too.
And I don't want to spoil what it did because I strongly encourage anyone play it. But Ryan had to say something to me to unfuck me up.
oh yeah.
And thank heavens
and my
he
friend
did.
Scott as well.
But Beginner's Guide it changes the way I fundamentally think about and engage with art since experiencing it, and it's a lot of like, again, right game, right story, right time for me, that I identified so deeply and heavily with so many parts of it that it. Sean, with the conversation we have been having in the DMs, you need to play Beginner's Guide.
It's absolutely on my list
Um,
and on my misconnections. Spoiler.
It is profound. It is one of the greatest stories and art pieces I have ever engaged with and likely will ever engage with. It's so profound. And it's one of the things, like, it's not going to have that effect on every single person who plays it. It's not that kind of story. It's not that it's necessarily well written. It's that the way that it resonates with me specifically yeah, I don't see a game theoretically ever surpassing it narratively.
I think
Um,
it does affect people kind of within the same ballpark because I had my friend play it, and he played it with someone else in the room who does not play video games, and they both kind of experienced that same feeling by the end of it. But I mean, that game clicks so hard with me. Like I feel like game ended, credits rolled, and I just like closed it and just stared at my laptop
Yeah,
screen.
like it was days of like like a little bit of actual depression and like not feeling good. Like I think that I mean there's layers to engaging with it where it's like if you are just someone who can appreciate and who has appreciated art, there's one layer to it. If you are someone who makes art, there's another series of layers to it. If you are someone who makes games and are wanting to make games, it really just fucks you sideways.
It's just a regular game, and then at the end, there's a frame that says the Taco Bell Chihuahua has died.
Scrappy Doo's been found dead in Miami. But yeah, beginner's guide. And when I was doing the story writing, it's like I had a lot of like games I was going through on this. There was never even 1 second where beginner's guide was not number one. It was not even a moment of hesitation on that. And I really fucking like that King's Quest game. But yeah, with that, I'm gonna pass to Matt. What you got to follow that up?
So we've already talked about this. I mean, kind of a lot. My number one is that meme game.
Meme
Oh,
run.
Nier?
Yeah. Yeah. Nier, best game I've ever played. Would play it again every day if I owned a copy.
Hey, all the near boys are we all on? No, because when I go widescreen, it's gonna be different. Never mind, because it doesn't stack it that way. On my screen, all the near boys are on one half of the screen, and I feel united with my brothers.
You guys are in like a triangle for me.
Glory to
Same.
mankind. But yeah, Undertale, super duper
yeah.
good.
We're talking about Undertale?
Undertale.
I was somewhat
it's-
sad that Undertale didn't even make my top 5, but
I mean,
there's just been too much.
Yeah, and to be fair, I mean, I've played a lot fewer games than you have. But my experience with Undertale was not dissimilar to your experience with Beginner's Guide, minus the depression.
Then it's
but
shit.
I just think it's fucking great.
Yeah.
Everything about it, like say the characters are written really well. They all interact great together.
And there was definitely a point where it got it definitely got pretty
I think all
circle
the
jerky, but like
locations are really
I was having a really good time like engaging with the online community surrounding the game after it came out. But like I really did have a great time with Undertale. Like I remember
Hope
the
was
like
cyberbullying dash.
I think I played it in like the July or August of the year it came out. Or no, that's when it came out, and then I finally got around to it in like October, November. And I remember like the first time I played it, I was like, oh yeah, that was okay, I guess. And then Hunter kind of just kept saying like, hey, you should maybe go back and play that game again sometime. I'm like, okay, whatever. If you really think I should. And eventually, like that was when I went back to that and like got the true ending and everything like that. And it was something else. Like Undertale.
I remember-
was a profoundly good game.
Hunter got me to play it as well because we were listening to the music at work a lot, and I was like, "Fuck,
Yeah.
this slaps! This is awesome!"
yeah,
I
and
was doing my job shilling it.
yeah,
yeah. That's what we paid you for.
I also am sad that I didn't put it on my top 5. I will say it.
You
Yeah,
still
Too
have
much
time.
good stuff.
but yeah.
It's
So
not
I
your turn
ended
yet, you
up
still have time.
playing it in one sitting, and then I remembered like, oh yeah, you got to go back and do these things. So I was like, that shouldn't take very long. And it was like 1 o'clock in the morning when I beat like the main ending thing, and then did the like, finish up the other friendship paths you need to do, and that was like an extra 2 hours of finishing up that game. I think I finished it at like 3 or 4 in the morning, and I was not mad about it at all.
It was
Like-
well worth it.
I'm in disbelief how much a like game that relies so heavily on like tropes and like I feel like Undertale it somehow like says nothing new, but putting it all together makes this profoundly new thing. Like it's really weird. Like it's anime as hell, and
Yeah.
but it somehow feels like nothing else I've ever seen before.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's
Jason,
fantastic.
what anime-oriented game is your number one?
Yeah, I'll go.
Browse
I'm
View.
calling it.
Senran Kagura Peach Beach Splash.
That one. My number one is Control, so we cannot talk about it, so we don't spoil things for Sean.
Sean, you like it?
I'm like 3 hours in. I want to be done with it before we do like our final like game of the decade.
I was gonna say you need to be done before the end so we can actually be more in depth about the discussion.
Yeah, I feel really bad about it.
We also definitely
that's
like
fine.
we talked a lot about Control on its game of the year thing. Like
it was in like almost all of our categories of the people that played it.
I think that's one of those games that like everyone who plays it gets it and likes it, and
it's how much do you like it?
Well, it's so under the radar. Like if you've played it, you love it. But most people I know just have not heard about that
because they didn't advertise it. Like it was a fucking Epic Game Store exclusive. Like I'm really excited for the next one of these, or like by the time we actually get to Game of the Generation, because I will have played the DLC by then.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm pretty excited for that.
I will say I already can tell that it would have been a contender for like visual / aesthetic had I finished it before our last record.
It's got harder edges and more squares than Minecraft, baby.
But block building though.
Sean, what you got as your number one?
Oh right, it's me. So
Control.
I don't think I expected this one to make it to my number one, but it ended up being something that stuck with me so much more than I expected. And that is What Remains of Edith Finch.
Yeah.
Good game.
So I realized I didn't really go into it much when I talked about it for visuals, but it's essentially a series of scenes where you go through a stylized story of how somebody died.
So I think Jason is maybe the only person who's not familiar with it.
I don't think I've played a single game Sean has talked about in all 4 episodes.
Played Oxenfree,
Animal Crossing.
You are the like last surviving member of a family who is cursed to like die horrible, strange deaths,
or at least like that's their family like story. Like that's the story the grandma tells the children.
And they have a fairly large family, and they have this like Winchester mansion ass house where they just keep building onto it, but then every time a family member dies, they board off the room exactly how it was when they died.
And you journey your way essentially kind of up to the top. As you like, watch all these pastiches.
Yeah, you see vignettes of each. What Remains of Edith Finch, the second best walking simulator ever made.
I've not played it.
It's
on Game Pass.
I own it.
It's like 2 hours long. Like it's like 2 hours long to play it. Like,
highly
it's so
recommend.
good.
It's great, and it hits hard.
If you don't like walking simulators, it's still worthwhile.
There's like 5 sequences that like just I find my mind wandering to. It's great. It's truly a really well like written like.
Everything
it
about
is a walking simulator. It does the walking simulator thing,
but it does so much more than that. Like it is. I would recommend it to people, including Jason, who don't like walking simulators. Like it does enough cool shit.
And it makes me
watch it on
sad.
YouTube. Like
who
gives
really
a shit?
sad.
Like like it's anything to engage with that. It is. I stand firmly by. It's the second best walking simulator. The first.
I think my fiance had played it when I wasn't home once. I think I was at work or at school or something, and I came back. She's like, I cried because of that game. It's like she finished it and
so
like
good.
Like it transcends a lot of stuff. Like it's just a good story.
Like the vignettes really interesting, are individually entertaining. Like it's
because I think what walking simulators tend to fall into is like you just walk and stuff happens. I'm especially looking at Dear Esther, which I like walking simulators. I fucking hate Dear Esther. But this one, like it has things you can interact with, and they're all interesting and different kind of like little gameplay styles. You interact with them all in different ways, but it really immerses you in these little stories, these little myths about how people died.
Yeah, it's so good. I cannot speak more highly of that game.
It's great.
Hunter, what do you have as your number one?
Number ones are supposed to be special and talked about.
Anime.
You're right, Matt. It's Nier Automata. So,
like that's
I mean, it's not a surprise.
Plus, I mean, like we've already talked this to death in a lot of stuff.
Twice.
Actually,
it's so good. It's so
Please
good.
don't make us do it a third time.
Who are doing it a
There's
third?
nothing. There's just
Waving
nothing
the
else to
flags
say.
is
It's-
fun. We get it.
Waving the flags is fun.
And every day
You
is
get
a
it. You
sale.
like
Every
titty games.
What if a game was about
sale's a
sad
win. We
robots?
understand.
What if a game was about a hot robot that was also sad?
That's my
What
life.
if there was a whole game based around Pascal deserving it?
We'd have Nier Automata.
Exactly. So it's a good thing.
Well, with that, that's going to wrap up our best story and writing of the decade. Please join us next time where we will be discussing the best tool and weapon or item or mechanic, or one time it was Dante from Devil May Cry 5 of the previous generation.
It's the episode where we get very loose with how we describe a lot of things.
It's character, it's best character, but for gameplay.
Yeah.
Okay, but we will see you then.
Bye.